listen up. This is the Music Scene Podcast. I am your host, Dave Cudrak. Welcome to episode 16. We are rolling right along. I appreciate everybody's support, everyone who's listening and keeping this podcast going. It's great. I'm noticing quite a few more friend requests on Facebook, and they appear to be legitimate. They don't look like spam. But I'm guessing that's because more and more people are finding this podcast. So that's awesome. Thank you very much. Let's keep this going and build it into something special and get some more eyes on the South Jersey music scene and the incredible musicians that are in it. That's the goal, right? Shed some light on this area and beyond, and get a little bit more exposure for these incredible musicians who are out there every day doing what they do. They certainly deserve all the credit in the world. So thank you again for listening. Let's see, if you hear a little bit of noise in the background, like some banging or thumping or something like that, there's roofers on top of my building. They've been here all week. The other day they were walking around. I guess they peeled off the old roof, and as they were walking around, one of the roofers missed the beam and put his foot right through my ceiling. So that was fun. I certainly wasn't expecting that. It's all good though. They fixed it the very next day, so everything's pretty much back to normal, but it was pretty strange just to have this hole in my ceiling out of nowhere. This weekend's gigs, this Saturday, February 1st, I am playing Brewery 33 in Riverton, New Jersey from 7 to 10 p.m. Always a good time. Come and check that out. Sunday, Groundhog's Day, February 2nd. We've got our bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. We do an open mic there at Little E's Tavern. We start at 5. There's no football this weekend while we wait for the Super Bowl to come around next weekend. So we will be at Little E's Tavern on Sunday, February 2nd. We start at 5 and we go to whenever, right? If we've got a big list, we'll go till 10, 11, 12 o'clock sometimes. So if you're interested in playing or just listening, feel free to come out. It's always a good time. This Monday, February 3rd, I know I've mentioned it in the past. I apologize if you guys are getting tired of hearing it, but I'm pretty excited about it. I've been asked to be a special guest speaker at the Monday night meetup and open mic at the Fire on Girard Avenue in Philly. The doors open at 6. I'll be speaking from approximately 7 to 8, talking about music promotion and the podcast and giving a little bit more background to my story and my musical journey. And there's also a Q&A section. So if you're free, come on out for that. That's going to be fun. All right, today's guest is an old friend of mine. His name is Steve Karsch. And you'll hear it in the interview, but I haven't been face-to-face in about 30 years. We used to work at Friendly's restaurant and ice cream shop in Cinnaminson, New Jersey when we were in high school. I worked there for a total of 8 years, all through high school and college. He worked there for a few years, and we became friends because we both had music in common, right? That's one of the great things about music is it kind of connects people from all different backgrounds. So, we used to talk about music all the time, and it was great catching up with him. Because Steve and I are friends and friends from a long time ago, we kind of fell into our old ways of just talking about music, right? So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. It's a little bit different than kind of what you're used to hearing. Yes, we do talk about Steve's musical journey and the projects he's working on and things like that. But then at some point, the conversation just kind of shifts to two guys sitting around talking about music, right? We do go pretty deep into the songwriting process. So if you're a songwriter or interested in songwriting, I think you'll get a lot out of this conversation. And then, of course, if you're just a fan of music in general or, specifically some classic rock type stuff, we do talk a lot about that in this episode. So I think it's a great conversation. I was listening back to it to make sure I didn't have any funky edits, and I just found myself laughing all over again, even though I was part of this conversation a couple days ago. So I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. We do get 2 performances from him, so stick around for those. Have a great day, and I will see you on the next one. right, Steve, it's nice to see you, brother.
It's great to see you.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I mean, before we hit record, we were just kind of chatting downstairs real quick, and honestly, it's probably been like 30 years since we've last seen each other.
Indeed it has. I think I don't know. I know we were definitely in high school. I don't know if we saw each other since then.
I'm not sure if we have. I don't think so. Like after the Friendlies days.
Yeah.
I don't think we've managed to cross paths.
No.
You know? But that's all right.
Yeah,
you know?
Hey, we're here now.
That's right. We're friends on Facebook and all that. We keep in touch that way. That's how I was able to reach out to you and get you on the podcast. So that's great. So for those who don't know, Steve Karsch is an old friend of mine. We used to work at Friendlies in Cinnaminson. And yeah, man, Friendlies was like, I used to affectionately call it the island of the misfit toys, right? Because it was all these kids who came from all these different backgrounds who somehow seemed to, blend's not the right word, came together and kind of formed these bonds and friendships, and I mean, if it wasn't for Friendlies, man, like I'm not sure I would have made it through high school.
Yeah. It's crazy to think. I think most like food service jobs are like that. Like you're not to say that working at Friendlies was a pressure-filled environment, but like in the context of working in an ice cream shop, it kind of was.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you're in this time crunch, and everyone relies on each other, so you always sort of build that bond, I think.
Yeah, man, it was a good time for sure.
Yeah.
one of the things that stands out, because you and I used to talk music quite a bit, and even back then, and because I think we both played guitar at the time, you know, and I remember because this was the early '90s, I think, and like bands like Bush were real popular. And I don't know if you remember this, but we were having some kind of conversation, and you were like, I firmly believe that there's really only like 3 bands that exist, and they all put out music under different names.
That sounds like something I would have said. Well, it's sort of true. Not necessarily like the 3 bands, but definitely there's like sonic trends, like things tend to take on a similar sound. It's not that bands are listening to each other or whatever and saying, oh, I want to sound like that. It's just, you listen to something and you take notice of it, and you don't say, oh, I want to copy that. But like when you go to make your own music, you're like, I want to get something like that or something. And it kind of takes on that, like a similar sound. But yeah, there's really only 3 bands, and there's only probably 100 songs that have ever been written, and we're all just rewriting the same thing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, which is fine.
It's the same heartbreak over and over and over again.
But that's great, because there's heartbreak happens every day, every second of every day.
That's right.
Somebody needs a song for it.
That's right. All right, so we're gonna jump around a little bit, I think, timeline wise, right? So you're currently in a band called Snap Infraction.
Yep.
Right.
Indeed.
And tell me a little bit about that band and how they got started and what you guys are doing.
So Snap Infraction kind of started. Myself and the drummer from Snap Infraction, Tony Iannuzzi, who I've known for a million years since I was in 4th grade. Okay. Honestly. Yep. So we were in a band in the early 2000s called Great Jones. We mostly played like up in New York, and kind of around here, and we did that for a little while, and then that sort of fell apart. I was like, about bands and all that stuff. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
But I always, ever since I was a young boy, sort of like visualize or romanticize this image of a band in my head, even if it's just an imaginary one. So anyway, Great Jones kind of fizzled out, and I was going to do something. Tony and I kept going back and forth with stuff, and I was writing songs, and I would send stuff to him. And I was demoing some things, and I was like, well, we should just do something, me and you, do like a White Stripes-ish type thing, just like guitar, drums, whatever, and, kind of punk it out. And I was demoing a track for that, and I just could not help but like put a bass track on it. Like I couldn't help but make it like a full band track. So, that whole like, oh, we'll just do the two of us, which we did. It was just the two of us for a long time, and I would just cut the bass because we didn't really play live or anything.
Okay. Yep.
So anyway, that was like late, like 2009 and stuff. We started talking about this, but we didn't really do anything with it until about 2017. We put out an EP. Called Chin Music, and then a couple of years later we put out another EP that was Stiff Arm, and then in 2021 we did a bunch of singles,
couple Christmas songs in there, right?
Well, there's some Christmas songs in there too, yes, indeed. But I was talking to a friend of mine after we did the Stiff Arm EP. I was like, I don't really know what I want to do, because I don't know. I have this aversion to like making an album. It's a big thing to make an album.
Sure.
Like it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a project. Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he was just like, well, just like, do something where you like write a single every 2 months or something. I was like, all right, well, let's do a single. We'll do 2 songs every 2 months, which is a lot. It was more than I thought it was. When you first start, you're like, a song a month.
Easy.
We can crank that out. But it was a lot. And there were some times when we were like getting stuff in under the wire, and like Tony didn't have time to cut drums, so I would cut drums, and but that was fun. And then last year we came out with our album Ethos.
Yep, nice. Was that a long time coming, that album?
After the first 2 EPs and we started playing out a little bit, we got a third member, our friend Dave Kerr, on bass and vocals. So he sings a couple tracks on the album. But anyway, to answer your question about was it a long time coming? Yeah, after we did the singles, I was like, all right. So we basically just did an album in a year. So let's just like do it the right way.
Gotcha. Yep.
So all of like 2021, I think I basically wrote and demoed a bunch of stuff in my basement.
Oh, okay, cool.
And we pretty much had it like all planned out. We went into the studio. We used Gradwell House down in Haddon Heights or Haddonfield or something.
Yep. They just celebrated their 20th anniversary, I think.
Indeed. Congratulations to them. That place is great, and they're all awesome.
I've never been there, but I've heard good things. Yes. There's a punk band that I interviewed here called Jersey Calling. They did an album there.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All the demos were like kind of detailed enough to the point where there wasn't much time wasted like making creative decisions. Like all the decisions had sort of been made before we even got in.
Good. Yep.
Because time is money.
Sure.
Studios aren't free.
Yeah,
we planned it for about a year. I think we went into the studio January of 2023.
Okay.
And we were done cutting by June, and then took us a while to mix and get everything together for release. But yeah,
that came out in May, I think, right? May of 2024.
Yep.
Okay. How has it been received, do you think?
Pretty good. I mean, I think people like it. I am the worst self-promoter in the history. I take that back. There are 2 worst self-promoters, and they also happen to be in the same band. So I think we released the album. I put like 1 post on Instagram, and then that was it for the rest of the year.
Marketing machine.
Yeah. So plans for 2025: get better at marketing.
Well, you're off to a good start. You're on this podcast. Hey.
Exactly.
You mentioned, you add a bass line, or maybe you cut drums. So how many instruments do you currently play?
I mean, I mostly play guitar. My first instrument was piano.
Oh, okay.
Bass, drums, sort of.
Were you in marching band back in the day?
Yeah.
So, I think I remember that. So what did you play in marching band?
Drums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did marching band for a couple years. But yeah, I was one of those band geeks that was like in everything.
You're not the first one up here.
That's for
sure.
Yeah. I mean, which was great. I loved it, obviously. But.
Yeah. Did you get a lot from it? Like, did that kind of start your musical journey, or were you already playing guitar or whatever before that?
I started on piano. Mm-hmm. Then I did like a couple school instruments. I did like cello and sax, and then I was like, well, I want to play drums. So then I started playing drums in like 6th, 7th grade, and then my brother went away to college when I was in like 7th, 8th grade. And then he came home from college. And so since I was playing drums, I was super into Rush. I still am super into Rush. I know you know that I was super into Rush. So he came home from college and taught me Limelight on acoustic guitar.
Okay.
And that was like the first thing that, like, he knew. He's like, if I teach him a Rush song on guitar, this is how I get him to play guitar.
First song I ever learned, I think, was Tom Sawyer.
Oh yeah, well there you go.
Yep.
So yeah, that was like the first thing, and I think that Christmas, my parents got him like a guitar, like an electric guitar. He had asked for an electric guitar for Christmas. I went to the music store with my dad to help pick it out. We picked it out, took it home, hid it in some closet so my brother didn't see it. I came home from school every day, not early, but I was the first one home. I would take the guitar out, plug it in, play, jam a little bit, put it back in the package, put it back. I mean,
by the time your brother got it, it was a used guitar.
It was a used guitar by the time he opened it on Christmas, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we know Rush is a big influence. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, I think you're a big Beatles guy too.
Massive Beatles guy. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yep. So that leads me to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I live in West Berlin, and in Berlin, New Jersey, there's a place called the Vault, Victor Vault.
Yep.
And I've never been there, but I've checked out. Yeah, I've checked out their website and stuff, but I've never actually been there. Can you describe? Because I think you've played there.
I have.
They have like a house band or something.
Yeah, I get called when they've called everyone else.
But you still get called.
But I still get called. Yeah, they have a usual like rotating, or a pretty standard cast that plays most of the shows. Mm-hmm. Most of the shows like follow a theme. It's kind of like a theatrical environment rather than like a typical like bar or club environment. There's like high top seating and like theater seating and stuff like that. The place is great. Yeah. I mean, all the players are awesome. It sounds awesome. Okay. I love the way it sounds there. I love playing. So for those that don't know, and what little I know about it, I think like I've seen their shows are announced like Rolling Stone night or the Beatles night or something like that. So what does that look like if it's like the Beatles night or something? Sometimes it'll be like an album like front to back.
Oh, okay.
They'll do like Abbey Road. They'll do like Rubber Soul and Revolver or whatever. They'll break it up into 2 sets. Yep. So they'll do albums front to back, or they'll do like eras. They'll do like 80s night.
Oh, okay.
Like, or like 80s movies. You do all the songs from Back to the Future and Ghostbusters and stuff like that. Yep. It's really cool, and all the shows are different, and the songs. I mean, there's always great songs.
Sure, absolutely.
Always great songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll
definitely have to check that out one day.
Yeah, yep. I highly recommend it. I before I even played there, I knew about it and my family and I had all gone to a couple shows.
Oh, cool.
So actually, speaking of the Beatles and the Vault, I met Jeff Emmerich, who was the Beatles engineer.
Oh, wow.
For all those early records.
That's amazing.
At the Vault, he went and had like a speaking thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So my wife and I went, and that was really cool.
Very cool. And I think it's reasonably priced.
Yeah,
right?
It's a good night out. It really is, and it's perfect. The show starts at 7:30 or 8, and it goes to like 10, and that's it. And it's like I said, the show is phenomenal. Okay. Graham, who's the main guy, Graham Alexander. He's great. He's unbelievable. I mean, he's just an incredible singer, an incredible musician. He was on Broadway. He played like Paul McCartney and Rain on Broadway. Like, I mean,
that's cool.
Serious.
Tell me about the Christmas songs. Like I was perusing through, Apple Music, and I saw that you just released this past Christmas. You released that Tom Petty one.
Yeah. Christmas All Over Again.
Yeah. And then was it the year before that you released an original?
Yeah.
Yep. So what made you decide to do an original Christmas song?
I guess I had the idea, and we almost every year do a Christmas song. There was one of those years we missed, and I forget why. I don't even know why we do them, but now that we've done them, we kind of have to.
Right. Sure.
But anyway, I guess last year I guess I had an idea for an original, so I was like, all right, well, let's do this instead of doing the typical Christmas cover.
Yeah.
Tom Petty is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that has never written a bad song.
No, it's true.
That was fun to do, and we kind of pulled that together relatively quickly.
And was that recorded at Gladwell as well?
No,
or
that
you
was
do that in your basement
just
or whatever?
did that at home. I did like basic tracks, sent them to Tony.
Okay.
Tony did the drums and then sent them back.
Okay. So it's all done kind of individually, right?
Yeah.
You just piece it together.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's crazy. Our workflow is a nightmare, but I think we have it sort of down to a science.
Good.
Somewhat.
What are you using to record?
Logic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a bunch of songs.
Mm-hmm.
When you write, you go. It's like peaks and valleys,
sure,
and it's mostly valleys.
I agree. I agree 100%. We've got full-time jobs.
Yeah.
We've got families. I've got 2 kids. And it sometimes life just gets in the way.
Yeah. I mean, there was times probably like a month ago. I was like, man, I'm just never gonna write another song again. Like I just never I have nothing left. And then like last week, I wrote like 2 of my favorite songs that I've written in the last week. But I definitely have, Snap definitely has songs that we need to record and release. So nice. Like I said, I don't have a plan. I don't know what we're putting out this year, but we will definitely.
There's intention at least.
There is definitely.
There's an intention. Right,
and like the only thing that we get anything done is if we set a deadline.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing. That's why that whole thing will release this every 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
If I hadn't said that, and not that I said it to anybody except for myself.
Yep.
But if I hadn't said it, we would have released the first single and been like, that's good enough for this year. But it got me, from the songwriting perspective, it got me in the routine of like writing songs as like craft, not like sitting and waiting for lightning to strike.
Right.
When it never does. It's like, well, lightning strikes when you sit down and try to write a cool chord progression every day. Even if it never turns into something, one day it will turn into something.
Right. So do you buy into the what is it, the theory or the thought of that? Songwriting is a muscle. You have to exercise that muscle.
I definitely do. I mean, for me, I everyone's different, I guess. I wish it was like as easy as, I woke up today with a song in my head, and by the end of the day, it's fully realized and whatever. But from all I've heard from all the songwriters I've ever talked to or ever listened to interviews with, everyone says it's, it's not easy. If it were easy, everyone can do it, and everyone can do it.
Right.
You just have to sit down and do it.
Right.
It's not going to land in your lap. Songwriting is a fun puzzle to solve.
Sure.
It's like you get this idea in your head, and it's like, okay, how do I see this to completion? Like it's just the tiniest piece of the puzzle, and then you have to fill in all the places around it, and that's the fun of songwriting to me. It's like, this idea sounds cool. How do I really make it cool rather than just make it this idea?
And then when you get that second piece of the puzzle to fit, you're like, yes.
And God forbid you write a bridge and it ties everything together.
Right, exactly.
When a bridge happens, it's a miracle.
I had the very first song that I ever wrote. It was about my dad, and it was called "I Miss You." And it literally took like 10 years to write because I liked what I was doing in the verse. I liked what I was doing in the chorus, but it was just a little bit repetitive, a little bit monotonous. And I'm like, what? I don't know what else to do with it. And then somewhere, not necessarily out of the blue, because I was actively trying to like tweak the song. I hit like an A minor chord and I'm like, oh,
yeah, right.
You know, yeah. and then I made a bridge, you know, A minor and a G major. And I was like, oh my God, you know, and finally the song was done after like 10 years. Like you said, I wrote the bridge and it was the last piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Those songs, I have a few of those songs that are like 10 or 20 years old. And I'm trying not to be so like, protective of songs, like you know, for those songs that I've been hanging on to for 20 years, like at this point they're so built up in my head that no matter what I do with them, they're never gonna live up to this potential of greatness that I've built up for it, because it's just been like going around my, like, why haven't I released it yet? I don't know. I just haven't, because by now to me, not that anyone's ever heard these songs, but like to me, it's like, oh, it's this big thing if this song comes out, and it's like, no, it's not. it really isn't. Sure. So I'm trying to be like more like, if I write a song and it's like, it's there and it's pretty close, it's like, not to say I just, you know, write half-ass songs,
no, I know what you're
but
saying.
Like if there's nothing, I can't think of anything else to do with it. Like I've worked it to death. Then it's just gone. There will be another song. Right. Somewhere down the road, I will solve this. I will face this problem again, and I'll know how to solve it.
Yeah. There's the saying, done is better than perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And I agree with that maybe 99% of the way, because like you, I kind of have a song that I really, really love, and I'm sitting on it, and it's not even so much that it's not written. I feel like it's fully written, but I don't have the money to go into a studio, so I'm trying to record it myself. So then when I'm adding like a drum track and stuff, I listen back to it and I'm like, oh, this isn't what I want for the song, you know? So maybe eventually I'll go in the studio and maybe get a producer and do the whole thing just for this one song. But in the meantime, like there are other songs that I don't hold so closely, right? And yes, done is better than perfect. I want to try to finish it up, get it to a point that I'm not embarrassed for other people to hear it.
Right.
And then if it evolves over time after it's out, then so be it. You know, like maybe I'll play it live somewhere and I'll change a little something. I had a previous guest in here. His name's Michael Songs. He goes by, and he's written over 1,000 songs, and he releases songs like crazy. Yeah. He's in like a secret project on the side that he doesn't talk about, and they release songs all the time. Yeah. You know, and he is like, like once it's done, and like I get it out into the universe, and then if it needs to change after it's born, then let it change after it's born. It's fine. You know.
Well, I read an interview with The Edge from YouTube once, and he said, you know, songs are never done, they're just released. Or maybe it was from that movie, It Might Get Loud.
Okay.
But yeah, you can tweak songs forever, but that you're sacrificing future songs for that song. You know what I mean?
That's
like
true,
you're spending so much time on this song that you're neglecting these other ideas, and the song's probably just fine.
Right.
Like for someone who hasn't been worried about it for the, you know, weeks and months and years, like someone hearing it for the first time would be like, it sounds perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty good. What's your songwriting process look like, whether it's by yourself or with the band?
It's by myself. And it's usually, I do a lot of, much to my wife's chagrin, we will sit on the couch at night and watch TV, and I'll have the electric, you know, just unplugged and just constantly noodling with whatever. And I will, you know, occasionally hit on a progression or a chord or whatever that triggers a melody in my head. And then I'll get it on the voice memos app, and then I will do nothing with it ever.
I laugh because I have the same app on my phone, and it's got over 1,000 memos in it.
Like maybe once a year I go back and listen to like the most recent 20, and I'm like, I'm not going through the rest of these. There's no way. Like if there's some like platinum selling idea in here, so be it. Like, well, it's somebody else's now.
It's funny because like everybody I talk to in here, it's the same thing. They all have a phone that is full of thousands of ideas. And just, when you think of the statistics behind it, there probably is a number one single in somebody's phone somewhere, and it may never see the light of day.
That's the thing with songwriting. It's easy to have ideas.
Yeah.
It's hard to take that idea and take it and make it a puzzle that looks like a picture, that looks like something. And I have to like sort of play games with myself to finish a song, because I'll like, especially with lyrics. There was one song I wrote a couple months ago, and I was like, I had the song and I had a lot of the lyric ideas, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna like write a line, and then I'm gonna take a 15-minute break.
Yeah.
And then I would go like do something else for 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna write another line. And like I'm not even trying to write finished lyrics. I'm just trying to get something sort of coherent that I can like demo.
Okay.
And at the end of the several hours of 15-minute breaks, I had a like complete lyric. Nice. Pretty much like it. Yeah. But like, who wants to do that? Like, you just want to sit down and write yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away. Like, I don't want to take a 15-minute break every time I write a word.
Yeah, right. Was that the song that Paul McCartney said came to him in a dream? Was it?
Yeah, it was Scrambled Eggs.
Yeah.
So like, it came to him in a dream, except it could have been scrambled eggs, and we would not be talking about it today.
That's exactly right.
But he had to, to take that time to work it over and over in his head. All right, well, what could the word be? And then turn it into a song,
It's crazy.
But yeah, it is crazy. Actually, I was listening to, there's this bootleg McCartney album from like the 80s called Return to Pepperland. And I guess it was just like I don't really know too much of the background of it, except for what I read on Wikipedia yesterday. But it was just like a collection of demos from the 80s. It wasn't, I don't think it really, any of it was like meant for general release. It was just like him working through the process. And there was like some songs that are just like these repetitive things. And it's just like this riff like over and over again for like 4 minutes and never goes anywhere. And I said to my wife, I was like, it's crazy, but it's like you're hearing his process.
Yeah.
Like, he knows it's never going to go anywhere.
Right.
But like he's thinking, all right, well, how far can I take this? Like, what can I do to this to make it so maybe it could release? And then we just don't release it.
Right.
Like, I'm smart enough to know no one wants to listen to this.
Well, that's what I found so fascinating about watching, what was it? Was it Get Back? The Peter Jackson 6 hour. I mean, you're witnessing him and John Lennon. Just I forget what song it was, but they were like writing it in real time, and you're like, holy shit, that's how it happened.
The process.
It was crazy.
Like, and that it's so. First of all, that movie is so like inspiring as a amazing creative person because it's like. Yeah, it sucks. Like, there's a reason a guy quit the band halfway through. Like,
I know. George Harrison is in the Beatles, for God's sakes, and he's like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Like, this experience is horrible. Writing songs and arranging them? No, thank you. Like, this is terrible. But it's like reaffirming to all of us who do this for fun or for a living or whatever at any level comparative to them. It's just like, all right, even they struggle. Like even they sit through and say, go through a list of names to come up with, Loretta Martin or whatever. Like, it's just like, oh, I'm not the only one that does that. Okay.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we've covered Rush and the Beatles. Any other big time like influences?
Yeah, I mean, like the Rolling Stones, obviously. Oasis, I'm a huge Oasis fan. Yeah.
Okay.
Blur. I was big after Rush and after grunge.
Right.
I was pretty heavy into Britpop, like Oasis, Blur, Supergrass, all that stuff. But yeah. Foo Fighters, Van Halen.
Nice.
Freaking love Van Halen.
Yeah, man.
I can't play, sing, write or anything like them, but I love them.
Yeah, no, I mean, are you a Roth or Hager guy?
Well, Roth, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, part of the reason the Beatles fascinate me because they're incredible. Mm-hmm. But their story is just like, it's become myth at this point.
Yeah,
it's just this
legendary.
Big legend story. And I love bands that have stories, and Van Halen has stories.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Those guys are so weird. Like they're so weird.
Yeah.
Like they were just weird, but incredibly talented and driven.
And all the drama like behind the scenes, how they kick out David Lee Roth and then they get Sammy Hagar and everything's going great with those guys for a while, and now all of a sudden, maybe not all of a sudden, you look at their relationships now. Nobody talked to Eddie and Alex. Nobody talked to those guys when Eddie was still alive.
Yeah, they were very. I read Alex's book Brothers this year, which was pretty good. It was a lot of it I kind of seen in other interviews, like with Eddie and stuff before, but those guys were they just shared a brain.
Yeah.
They were tight. Like people talk about the Beatles being the four-headed monster and no one could like penetrate their little inner circle until, it broke. But to be like the two-headed monster and to be brothers, no one is breaking that.
Yeah.
Unless you're Liam and Noel Gallagher.
Yeah, Oasis or the dudes from the Black Crowes, right?
Right. Chris and Rich Robinson.
That's right. Yep.
The Van Halen story is just one of those stories of rock and roll that like you'll never get a straight answer out of anyone.
Right.
It's to their advantage that they never give a straight answer because then, anytime they show up for an interview, you're like, hey, tell me about Sammy or tell me about Dave or tell me about this. It's like...
Poor Gary Sharon from Extreme.
He's doing all right.
He's not doing too bad. Yeah. Extreme just released an album like a year ago. Yeah. It's not too bad. Yeah. I love Nuno. I think he's a great guitar player.
He's an incredible guitar player. Yeah. I used to love those guys back in the day. What was
it called? Three Sides Every Story? I was on my way to the Tower Theater to go see them live, and we got halfway there, and there was an announcement on the radio that the show got canceled. I forget why, but they just canceled the show like an hour before it was supposed to start. Saigon Kick was opening for them, and I was super psyched to see.
I was supposed to go to that. I may have been. Yeah. Sounds
maybe we were in the car together.
Yeah, we might have been. I have no recollection.
But yeah, I was going and they canceled it. And I used to be a big fan of Saigon Kick. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember them.
But I was psyched to see them more than I was psyched to see Extreme.
Yeah, what was their song?
Love is on the Way was their big one.
Yeah.
And then they had another one too. I forget what it was. But I think their big hit was Love Is on the Way. So let's talk a little bit about gear. Are you like a massive gear guy, like a gearhead?
No. Every time I try to take a step out of my comfort zone, I realize why I never took a step outside my comfort zone. I've gotten more pedals in the last couple years. I've gotten more into pedals, but I'm not crazy with it.
Okay. But I do see that your guitar case says Gibson on it. So when I say gearhead, you may not have all the bells and whistles, but you've got quality gear, I would imagine.
I got this. This is a Gibson J something 150 or something.
Okay.
Or 200. I don't know. We can look.
It looks like the shape of a J200.
Yeah, and they're all old now. And I feel like I just bought them. Like these are my new guitars, but they're like 25 years old because that was the last time I could afford guitars.
So what do you got as far as guitar wise?
Well, this is so I've got the Gibson J something for acoustic. I've got a Fender Tele Custom. It's like a reissue from like the late 90s, early. It's got the humbucker in the neck position.
Oh, cool.
I love that guitar.
Yeah. Why did you go with that, the humbucker in the neck position, and then it's got a single coil at the bridge?
Yeah.
So why did you choose that?
I love Teles. I love, even though I only have the one. I wanted something because I think I was the only guitar player in Great Jones at that time. So I wanted something that could give me a little bit of a fatter sound.
Okay.
To fill it out a little bit, so that's why I went with the humbucker in the neck,
right?
But still had like that classic Tele,
the twang,
nastiness,
okay, gotcha.
So that I got that, like I said, 2000 or 2001, something like that, and I have a Les Paul from around the same time.
Nice.
But,
and what kind of amps do you play through?
Well, I have a Marshall, but I haven't used that in forever because
when I hear Marshall, I immediately think half stack. But
it's
you have
a
half stack.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's a half stack. It's
Okay.
a JCM 800.
Okay.
Like it's like a 80 or 81,
Wow.
like 1981 Marshall or whatever.
Nice.
And I have like a Fender DeVille,
Nice.
which I've had, which is too big. So what I do now mostly is I've got a Universal Audio Ruby 65 pedal. It's like a Vox amp.
Oh, okay.
Simulator, emulator, whatever.
Yep.
And I just go out of that into whatever clean, like you can just go direct into the board or whatever. And
gotcha.
It sounds cool. And the telly through a Vox is a great classic, like,
is it? Yeah,
sound.
I've never played that combination. Yeah. I've got a Fender Strat that I bought in Nashville. It's a Michael Landau signature. It's called the Fender Coma, and it was in Nashville this past August, and we went into a place called actually coincidentally Groom Guitars, and we walked in, and I was not intending on buying a guitar. I really wasn't.
Said everyone who's ever walked into Groom Guitars.
Right, yep. And
they should make a T-shirt that said that.
Right, exactly. And Leanne she was in the market for she was like, I'm going to go check out the Martins. I want to get a nice acoustic guitar, and she ended up walking out of there with Martin OM21. It's beautiful. But while she's over at the acoustics, I'm just kind of walking around. I'm like, what is that? It was hanging on the wall. And I grab it. It's natural wood finish, and it's purposely made to look a little bit aged, right?
Yeah.
It's not distressed or anything. It's not relict, but it's got a weird look to it. And I was like, oh, this is really nice. And then I played it, and I'm like, oh my God, it was like the nicest playing guitar I think I've ever touched. And historically, I used to play cheap gear all the time, Epiphones and all that stuff, not that Epiphones suck. They're the low end Gibsons,
Yeah.
And I have an Epiphone Les Paul. I have an Epiphone SG. I have a Mexican made Fender Strat, Mexican made Fender Strat. But then I grabbed this guitar and I was like, holy crap, so this is what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
That guitar inspires me every day, like I cannot not play it every day.
Yeah, it's funny how I go through phases with my guitars. Like I mostly play the telly and record with the telly. And then like I was just working on a song last week and for one of the guitar parts. I was like, oh, I'll put a Les Paul on here. And it just has a different personality.
Sure.
Like it's still me playing, but it's like a different person playing or something. It just sounds different. It feels different when I play it. It makes me play in a different way. Like you said about how it inspires you. Like it just, different instruments inspire you to play a certain way.
Yep. Let me back up real quick. So you're not doing anything solo, right? So Snap Infraction's your only project, right? So how can people find Snap Infraction?
We are all over the internet with snapinfraction.com. You can find us on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you
Facebook,
stream
Instagram,
music.
right?
Facebook, Instagram, we're all at Snap Infraction. We have a couple like lyric videos and stuff that we did for the album last year, and we have maybe a live video or two, I think.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to cover? Anything else you want to just say before we move on to the performance?
No.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you so much for having me.
No, dude, I appreciate you.
The podcast is awesome.
Good.
I
appreciate
really
it.
And you're doing an awesome job showcasing all these musicians.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. And thanks for doing the podcast. And it's great seeing you. Again, it's literally been like 30 years. So. You're going to do 2 songs for us, I guess, right?
Sure.
All right. What songs are you going to do?
I'll do one from the new album in the spirit of promotion.
There you go.
Called Keeping Score. I'll do a song, one of the singles we put out in 2021. I'll do a kind of a different arrangement of it. It's called Memories of Ourselves.
Awesome.
So we'll try that.
All right, cool.
All right. This is called Keeping Score. stop myself from becoming who I am. Because without you needing me, I'm just an ordinary man. I don't worry about the prices when left to my own devices. You should know by now. When the clock stops ticking, I don't wanna be the one that's left sitting around. I can't help myself. You know I can't believe my eyes. I wanna tell you what I'm seeing, but I can ruin the surprise. You've all been patiently waiting just to watch me finally get what I deserve. My next mistake is gonna break me, but I guess now I've lost my nerve. I never learned. What do they say about me? He lies, he cheats, and get everything he needs and maybe more. What will they say about me? I don't need to know, 'cause I'm not keeping score anymore. You need to slow it down. You don't know how to take it easy. You're running here and running there. You don't always have to please me. And if you cross that wire, I can help you, but you'll have to wait your turn. I didn't start this fire, but I sure as hell am gonna let it burn. I'll never learn. What do they say about me? He lies, he cheats, he get everything he needs and maybe more. What will they say about me? I don't need to know, 'cause I'm not keeping score anymore. Keeping score. I need to stop myself.
All right. Nice. Awesome, brother.
This is called Memories of Ourselves. We can escape tomorrow. No time for pain and sorrow. Reaching the end of our road. Walking among the shadows. We were naive and so easily deceived. We wanted to believe in something else. Were we confused or so easily amused? We can't retrieve these memories of ourselves. Enemy soil behind us. They won't know where to find us. Nothing left to remind us. Free from the ties that bind us. We were
ない